Well, folks, welcome to another What's Your Story. We get to just meet another great lady or spend time with her or nothing else. If you don't know Vex, you've been missing out. I mean, I can't tell you how much fun I've been having watching your videos. Links are in the description. Make sure you check that out. I'm not into gaming and stuff, Vex, but it was one of your videos that came right after I saw you on a panel, and I was like, see, that's somebody that knows how to have some fun with this. Like they get the concept of where we are with the entertainment. They get the concept of how it's deteriorated, and they just don't have a problem speaking their mind. And yes, I'll remind her because she's not always PG-13. But yes, we are trying to stay PG-13. But you get a winder. We get her wound up and send her on her way. Sometimes she's not PG-13, and I totally get it. So, but Vex, thanks for hanging out with us and talking to us a little bit this morning.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure. No problem at all.
So, what transpired where you went, I could do this YouTube thing. I'm going to do that.
So I guess it started during COVID. I started just streaming on Twitch just for fun because I had a lot of time on my hands. Because I'm in Canada, so there were pretty lengthy lockdowns. We couldn't run our business at all because of all of the kind of social distancing and all of that stuff. So I was working like 8 hours a week, and I had this backlog of games that I hadn't played. So I was like, oh, I'll start streaming on Twitch just for fun. And I was growing like a pretty consistent following there. And then work picked back up, and it was just like I can't maintain this anymore. So a couple months after I stopped, I think it was like 6 or 7 months afterwards, um, right in like spring 2022, there was a stream team that I was like part of for a little bit, and there was a huge controversy that blew up. Basically, he was siphoning money from a lot of his bigger supporters, and he wasn't following through on his word, and it was something that blew up. A lot of people reached out to me. And then I kind of got jump started again, like in the content creation sphere, because all of these people wanted me to show up to pre-record a video or just like show up on a podcast to discuss this, right? And after that, I was just kind of like, I started doing a weekly gaming podcast with someone I had like met through Twitch as well, and we were doing that every Sunday live on. We started on Twitch, and then we moved to Rumble. There we go. Because we were doing really well on Rumble, because Twitch really, it throttles what you can say and what you can do on that platform, right? And we weren't really happy with that, because then it was the whole point of our podcast was we want to remove the bias out of gaming, because in the last like 10, 15 years, it's whether it's a game review or just something that's maybe someone who works in the industry, like the critique is always extremely biased towards maybe one publisher towards the other, one console to the other. So we just wanted to remove that and just be honest people talking about gaming. And that just kind of didn't. We were doing that for almost a year, in all honesty, and then I was just finally like, I kind of want to do this on my own. Like, it's no offense to you or anything, but I like more the idea of just kind of breaking off and doing things a little bit my own way. Cause, you work with a partner, and it's like sometimes you always don't see eye to eye on things. And then it is reflected into whatever you two are working on.
Right.
So I just kind of like, I broke away from that. And then Cannoli Sasquatch, there we go. He found me randomly on Twitter, I think it was. I think it was like during the whole the Avatar 2 debacle, where people were like, "Oh, blue lives matter as well," because of all the kind of like undertone messaging with the Navi people. And I responded to someone, and I guess like that went a little bit viral, and that was how he found me. And he invited me onto his Friday show, which it used to be the Whiskey and Cannoli podcast, but now he's rebranded that to the Cannoli Connection. So I was on that, and I guess just the chemistry was right, and he invited me to join Mischief Mayhem Movie, the Monday movie review show that we do. And that kind of just got me thinking, like, maybe I don't need to just like hitch myself to just podcasting or just one form of entertainment, because I always wanted to give YouTube a try, but it's just like, life happens and it just kind of falls to the wayside, right? So I just kind of put out a video randomly, like I think it was like December 30th of last year. Just was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna oh, sorry. Screw it. I'm just gonna go ahead, put a video out there, see how it does. And it got a pretty good reception for my first video kind of out in the sphere. And then you know how YouTube is, it kind of becomes a bit of an addiction in itself. So I just started, I kept publishing videos. I kept showing up on other people's shows as well because they started to see everything, and people were also seeing me on Cannoli's channel. So it was like I was starting to just kind of like grow this circle that I was in, and I guess I ended up networking by accident with some even bigger YouTubers, and they had given me some really good recommendations on, you have more of a personality that you should take advantage of in your content. Like you really have an opportunity to make this work as a career if you really wanted to, if you're really
Mhm.
like willing to put in the work. So I made the second channel, which is now just dedicated to the movie
Mhm.
review and TV review stuff, and then I have the gaming channel. But I'm just that's where I'm at. I am kind of trying to make this work a little bit more full time for other reasons aside from it's fun. I have things that I want to do in my life, and this would make it would make that a lot easier in all
Mm.
honesty if this could take off. So there's bigger goals in mind that I feel making YouTube more of a staple or a career would be helpful for. So
Right.
that's how I got into it and where I'm at
How
now.
how is podcasting and streaming now compared to when you were doing the Twitch with a partner? Like how is that joy button and stuff differently now?
I think it's now I've gotten used to the medium a lot more, and
Mm.
I've learned, I guess, how to better. I find it's easy to read people when you're like face to face in a like an environment with them, but it takes a little bit more of an extra step when it's over like through a screen, right, or on a stream. So I think I've just learned how to better read people in this sphere, and I've stopped kind of not in like a really bad way, but like I've stopped monitoring myself as much, I think is the biggest thing. I still understand like, in what situations what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, but I think just like being a little more genuine has helped quite a bit, and that's what from based from where I started to where I am now. I think it's made a huge difference, and it's why a lot of people it's why my content is growing the way it is, and it's why I think people reach out to me as much as they do because there's no facade here at all.
Yeah, you and Mrs. Sassy, you there's no veil. Like I can see why that circle is a perfect place for you to
Mhm.
have kind of gotten your feet wet and kind of grow a little bit and experiment because
Yeah.
I know with Cannoli when we've interacted, it's just like, well, we're just who we are, man. And to know that we're surrounded by other people that are the same way. Obviously, his is his wife. It's
Mhm.
and my wife's like that too. She just does not have any desire to do all this. My wife's worse than I am. Talk about not holding back. She's just like she can't. She won't. I'm literally in the middle of trying to drag her to the theater to see something right now that I want to go see. She has no desire. She's just like done with these people.
What are you
Uh,
trying to get her to go see?
there's, the Kenneth Branagh, Agatha Christie movies that he's done. It's called Death on the Nile, and he had
Yeah.
done yeah, so Murder on the Orient Express. Well, he has a new one, so that's the one. So
Gotcha,
I'm trying to get her to
gotcha.
go see that because she's enjoyed them, and I'm like, yeah, I know they're long, and but you've enjoyed. Let's go. Let's go. We haven't been for a while and stuff, and we moved during the pandemic, so we're really pretty remote because
Mhm.
we used to because when I was doing radio and I was writing for websites and stuff, I had like a very good relationship with like Fathom events, so we'd go to a lot of those type of screening events, which were fun because they're
Mhm.
anniversary screenings. But she also did, like she would enjoy doing like the ballet ones where they would live stream like Russian ballet, and she
Mhm.
enjoyed different theater. So it's like all that's kind of like been on hiatus since then, and it's like, well, we gotta keep finding ways to do that. But I'm with you. I want to just speak my mind. I want to do my thing and let the chips fall where they may. And it isn't that refreshing for you? Does that make you feel better with your day-to-day life stuff to know that people around me think I'm probably really, really weird because I'm very because I've become what's happened is I've become more isolated and sort of reserved interacting with them in like the business sphere of things. But it's because it's all focused like right here. Like
Gotcha.
I don't really have any desire to get into all this conversation in this meeting because my brain is loaded up with my rage over the latest Ahsoka episode. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know about you, but I feel like that's been one of the biggest shifts for me. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't really, I'm not really too stressed right now or this deadline. Like, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to knock this down, and because I need to get to writing my review on this movie that totally stinks. Yeah, it's just
Right.
beyond, yeah, you know
For
what I mean?
sure. I think
Yeah.
it's more because I work with children, I always have to watch what I'm saying, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I for me it's less that I'm able to kind of like channel the emotion, but it's more like I know that there's a place where I can like be unfiltered and talk about all this stuff that no one else is discussing. So I
Mm.
just like for me it's like it's finally an outlet where it doesn't because I think a lot of people find it kind of off-putting when you throw something a little bit I guess not for us it's obscure, but when you throw it out to them it's a little bit obscure like this movie or like this show was like a bunch of like feminist garbage and they're like what? You know, it's like their brain doesn't process
Hmm.
entertainment the same way
Hmm.
that a lot of us
Yes.
do.
Right.
So I find myself, I would always have to censor myself a little bit in that respect. And then, even more so around children, like you got to pick and choose what's really appropriate. So for me, it's just like, it's finally an outlet where I can be just like, I don't have to worry about anything. I can just say it and it's out there and I can discuss it with people that are in the same headspace as me.
So before we started, we were discussing like in our private lives, and you were talking a little bit about like subliminal messaging that was in a movie like called Focus, and I was making Inception references and things like that. So what you need to do is you need to go to these kids and secretly be programming them to know, go home, kids. Disney Plus is dog crap. Go watch old retro Saturday morning cartoons. Saturday morning. Have you ever asked your parents about Saturday morning cartoons? Have you ever seen episodes of Transformers? You've never seen, She-Ra, the Power Princess, the original 80s one? Not
I
on Netflix. Oh, no, no, no. Watch it. Yeah. So I'm with you. I'm with you. So
I do that a lot actually. I'll
yeah.
cuz it's been I didn't grow like for I'm early 30s, right? So for me kind of the transition from Saturday morning cartoons to Netflix is it's been pretty wild to see that happen and like how it's like unfolding for like this younger generation that now like they don't have a favorite movie, they don't have a favorite show. There
Nope.
is nothing that they get excited to see every week
Yep.
because
There's no events anymore. It's very rare
yeah,
for there to be an event, right?
it's just
Yep.
all on streaming and they can just, sit there and watch the whole thing, but then they don't really retain it because like you said, there's no event
Just
attached
the
to it
next
anymore.
thing. Just the next thing. Just the next. Everything's
Exactly.
24/7. It's the next thing. It's the next thing, and it's just. Yeah, there's not
It's
the imprinting.
sad.
Maybe. Yeah, it is. I think they're missing, and I think this is okay. And again, this is part of my brand. For those of you at home, you guys know me. That's why I do Saturday morning cartoons every week. I'm doing that was my healthy. If you didn't know, Vex, I got too knee deep in the middle of too many Disney products. It was probably a week where She-Hulk was on and something else, and I was like, I gotta drive home tomorrow. I can't go home in this big sourpuss place in my brain.
Mhm.
And it was the 30th anniversary of like the X-Men animated show and the Batman animated show. So I watched those and I was on a high. I went home. I was just like, my wife's like, wow. And she was like, just do videos. So it become like a weekly thing. So I've been doing it. I'm literally on episodes. I went into the 50s for Batman, and it's like a weekly thing. And it's become like, listen, we've never even explained. And you're in that age that kind of at least had a foot a little bit in Saturday morning
Yeah.
cartoons. I'm
Mhm.
like OG, where it was like I don't understand why we were allowed to sit in front of the TV for like 3-4 hours at a time. Like it's very contradictory to the rest of our messaging of get outside and play. Don't you come in this
Mhm.
house? I don't even know where my kids are after. It's like it was all that. But on Saturday mornings, it was like here they are getting programmed to go buy toys and eat cereal and Pop Tarts. It was
Mhm.
very strange. Um, but you're so right that a lot of what has been lost is event programming, the cultural moments of shared things. Because like
Mhm.
I guess Stranger Things was a little bit last year. I think Top Gun become that.
Mhm.
I think One Piece is probably the only one I can think of right now. I mean, Barbie is, but that's a different kind of thing because it's kind of been hijacked beyond the movie itself. But
Yes.
One Piece, I think, is becoming a cultural thing. But the problem with One Piece is it's like a binge thing. It's like here's 8 episodes, it'll burn out. It won't have any legs. It's going to be something that happened in September that many people will forget at the end of the year when they're doing best of lists or whatever. And they'll go, oh,
Yep.
crap, that was this year. But if it had been done like weekly, we would have 2 months of people talking about One Piece and then the anime fallout of people getting
Mhm.
interested. Um, for you, how do you manage sort of like your content and things that you want to focus on? Because you write pretty, you have to be writing scripts because you have very extensive sort of like conversational and out way more than me. Everything from me is like it's off the cuff. You hear me and hemming and hauling. My brain
Yeah.
sometimes will crap out. You'll see me boomerang where I'm like searching the freaking the plus 10 or 30-second thing won't get me to where I want to be, and I'm getting mad. I'm like, no, I want to show this friend. You know, you can see, no, you have this sort of like, I'm going to put you in a class here, and I don't know, maybe it's not right. We'll see when people go.
Process. Yeah,
No,
for sure.
so
No,
there's
you're
like there's critical drinker,
yeah.
and then there's Copa, and Vex is like rising in the water, like she's playing in the same concept of like this sort of concept review of stuff. So just so you know, that's my analysis for you.
Thank you. That's
Mm.
actually a lot of people make that comparison, which I find kind of weird because I kind of, I'll, when I, okay, my process actually, you've caught me at a time where I'm basically revamping and, imagining my entire creative process. But because I run the learning business that I work for, right? So
Mhm.
aside from just being in our center 5 days a week, I'm creating lesson plans. I'm communicating with, hundreds of parents. I'm doing accounting. I'm doing weekly billing. I'm making sure all of our marketing is up to speed because we're an independent organization, right? I'm the one who designed our website and everything. So my my creative process had been extremely rushed because of all of the other things I had on my plate. So I'd go see, I've been sticking to just new releases, and that's something I do want to change moving forward
Mhm.
now as well. But I'd go see the movie like on a Wednesday, Thursday, if there was an early access premiere or whatever. And then over the course of if I see it on Wednesday, so then over the course of the Thursday, Friday, or if I see it on the Thursday, then just over the course of the Friday, I'll pump out the script for it. And then on the day I'll record it. So on Saturday when I record it, I work Tuesday to Saturday. So I have Mondays and
Mhm.
Sundays and Mondays off. So on Saturday after work, I'll review the script, I'll record it, and then I'll cut the video all in one go. And then I'll premiere it on a Sunday, like around noon or so. Um, I find like I feel like I at first like, oh, okay, I'm getting across everything I want to say, but it's just then I'll watch it over in the premiere, and because the process was so rushed, I really didn't give myself enough time to properly review everything. I
Mm.
find myself like in every video I've published, I
Mhm.
think that's over 10 minutes, I'll say. Just like, oh man, there's this scene where I forgot this, and there's this bit where I wanted to add this, right?
Yep.
So like I've since now that September has started, I have switched to part-time. So I'm only working 3 days a week for a multitude of other reasons. But now this gives me an opportunity to actually like, okay, I can properly review my content, A, and B, I want to switch. I find it's very hard to find, I guess, good popular things that are coming out in cinema or on streaming, right? Like,
Mhm.
let's face it, 99% of all the stuff that we're seeing come out that gains a lot of traction is not very good. Right? There's a lot of problems with it. If it's not on a technical aspect, then it's in the creative aspects or it's in the messaging, which is just kind of injected like all forms of media these days.
Mhm.
So I feel like I just end up making all this content that's just hating on things, and
Mhm.
I don't set forth intentionally to do that. Like, yeah, I'll just be like, oh, this movie looks like it's garbage. I know I'm gonna have a negative review. And then I want to be proven wrong though, is the thing. So I'm very disappointed when I'm not proven wrong. But I want to just move away and go to things like that I actually enjoyed. Like I saw Smile for the first time last week. I don't know if you
Mhm.
watched that horror movie at all.
No, it's on my list of things that came pretty highly recommended from Matt, a
Okay.
comedy idiot, back in the day. It was last year, I think,
Yeah.
and I just haven't gotten to it. We're coming up on October, so I'll catch up on some horror movies and things
Perfect
like.
time, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
like I finally watched that for the first time last week, and I was really impressed by it. I was happy that yeah, it takes some of like the modern shock value tropes that you see in a lot of horror, but it reminded me a lot of like a Ray Bradbury or like even or early Stephen King like short stories where you get the buildup of everything else, and then you don't get the scary shebang, the monster until the end. So it felt like a callback to a lot of classic horror in which you feel tense the entire time, and
Mhm.
then finally you see this monstrosity at the end. So I highly recommend it as well, but I just like I haven't been able to stop thinking about it because it left such a positive impact. So it's like I don't want to have to always worry about what is the algorithm going to favor or what are my viewers going to favor. I kind of just want to go back to the roots in which I started on the gaming channel and just review stuff I like or dislike or that's just hanging around
Right.
in my
Okay.
brain. And if the audience is there, that's great. If the audience isn't there, that's also great. That's not going to stop me, of course, from like seeing a lot of like bigger things. Like I've been watching Ahsoka, even though I'm not a Star Wars fan. Um, and lore
Clearly a
aside,
masochist. Clearly a masochist. Yeah.
right, lore aside, I'm just finding so many problems with it that you don't even have to be a Star Wars fanatic to kind of point out. And then in that sense, it's like I want to also go from just straight reviews and I want to be able to speak my mind on something. Like Barbie kind of set forth this idea in my mind where it's there's a pretty severe problem when it comes to women in cinema, whether it's behind the camera or whether it's on the screen or whether it's helping kind of the development process. It just seems we've encountered kind of this weird phase where women involved in the entertainment industry now is an overtly negative thing more than a positive thing, which is not how it
Mm.
should be because they all seem to be on the same wavelength when it comes to strong female characters, but then those strong female characters are just men. And then it's okay, if they're just men, then we've got to effeminate all the male characters. Or we've got to damage all of their development for the sake of the female characters. And then it's I hate to say it, but it's gotten to the point where it's like I see a female lead in a film and I'm just like, "Oh, no." You know, like cuz there's such a bad taste
Right.
there. And I
Yeah.
don't want it to be like cuz I remember watching, Alien and Terminator and
Mhm.
all of these great like female action stars on the screen when I was younger and I didn't have that problem at all. Yeah, they were still strong and they were still, they had some masculine traits, but they still maintained all their femininity. And so just to see us go from creating the unique female hero to kind of this weird like sexist replacement hero, it's just left a bad taste in my mouth. And I feel that a lot of um God, this will sound a little sexist, but to hear men kind of talk about that angle is I feel less impactful than a woman coming into that
Mm.
angle. If
Sure.
that makes like
I come across as mansplaining. I think I joke about it in one of the videos I did recently. I said, "Okay, hold on for a minute, ladies. This is me mansplaining you because I think you're wrong. This doesn't make any sense. Blah blah blah." It's like this makes you look weak. This doesn't make you look strong. I'm sorry you think it makes you look strong, but it makes it look like But let me try to circle back to
yeah.
you speaking because it sounds like you're trying to assess your content diet. Like, what do you want
Mhm.
to not just present or get yourself worried about what you're presenting, but also like how you're healthily going to have a balance because modern entertainment just keeps putting things in one side of the
Yeah.
scale over and over and over again. So therefore, can I counterbalance that by trying to spend some of my energy and some of my resources talking about and I think it is. I think it's I can't tell you how many times it's been said and how rewarding it is for me to say to someone thank you when they say, "Oh, I wouldn't have watched that until you recommended it," or "I like
Mhm.
that because I went and got it, and you're right, I like it." Things like that. That is to me why I do it. I got to be honest. I mean, a lot of the comic book content I do barely gets any views because
Mhm.
there's just it's more of a niche. We're like kind of a niche nerd that are into comic
Yeah.
books, and I had a great conversation with Angry Canadian, and we were talking about, you walk into a comic store, and it would be like, there's 80 years of comic books in this place. Where do I begin? Like, that is very true. Good point. I am your guy. I am your librarian. I
That's
will help
literally
navigate. Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
reason I find it very daunting to get into comic books, like, because
Yeah.
I was never a heavy comic I think I read manga here and there if I watched an anime that I enjoyed,
Sure.
but it's just like, where do I start? And it's
Hmm.
on top of that, it's like because I know, like, many universes, especially if we're looking at DC and Marvel, there have been
Hmm.
alternate timelines where maybe this
Hmm.
character is evil or they join this group, so it's like,
Yeah.
how do I understand what is, I guess, main canon, what's not canon,
Yeah,
how do
yeah.
I know that I'm getting the best lore or best background or best version of this character going in. And on top of that, I know throughout like the 2010s now, it's been the injection of a lot of things,
Oh, it's the
unfortunately,
woke,
right?
it's the woke, it's the woke, it's the woke era. It's the woke era for sure.
Yeah,
So,
and that
but
seems to have destroyed a lot of the good stories that had, defined comic books as
mhm.
such a fantastic and like interesting medium, right? So it's like, oh, how do I know where to navigate in those waters as well?
How how are you putting together your game plan then? Like, I mean, you're kind of a scripter. Are
Mhm.
you kind of like creating like a schedule routine, a to-do list? Kind of like how are you kind of structuring things and how are you sort of looking for like key identifier. So if
Mhm.
I'm a cheater, like I love anniversary stuff. Like it's real easy to go, it's the 30th anniversary. So what are all the 1993 movies? Are there any of them that I think I want to talk about? Or,
Mhm.
1983. It's like, I'm a cheater. I go find anniversary things. I think it's like, it's almost like an easy softball to have a reason
Mhm.
to talk about a movie, especially if it's not controversial. It's just either
Mhm.
good or really bad. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
there's not a reason to talk about it. It's just, oh, I'm going to make a reason. It's 40 years old this month or this year or whatever. People are like, oh crap, it's 40 years old. I haven't watched that movie since I was in college.
Yeah.
So, what are some of your key identifiers or sort of like guideposts that you're using to kind of restructure and refocus yourself?
I think I just kind of at this time I'm just I have so I've when I started making YouTube content, I started just compiling a general list of things that I'd eventually like to talk about. I feel like with gaming versus movies and TV, it's easier to kind of play loose and fast with it because there's some like games or some fandoms that will always be popular, right? People will
Mhm.
always watch a Halo video. People will always watch a Red Dead Redemption video. People will always, watch a Mario video kind of deal, right? So there's some things that I can just kind of like put out there whenever and it doesn't matter. But with the movie stuff, like so far, what I've been doing is I've been playing to whatever is popular in just pop culture at that moment. Um, so Barbie was really big, so I intentionally, I took a day off work, I really wanted to make sure that video and that script was a lot better than some of the other things that I noticed were missing in previous videos. So I intentionally went out of my way to make sure that was, but I planned around it like a month in advance. The next one I think I'm planning to do is The Creator because that one looks like a pretty good one. That or The
Mhm.
Continental, the TV
Mhm.
series. So it's just I'm tentatively working around. Okay, there's going to be a video probably first week of October now because I'm going down south for a few days when the ideal release window is. So that will be a bit late,
Right.
right? But yeah, I just kind of play with whatever. I look at a release schedule and I go by that. And in the meantime, I still make note of things that I would like to talk about at some point. So like right now, I have like three like in the works scripts that I just kind of like come and go to.
Sure.
For the gaming channel right now, I'm trying to focus more on like Starfield, but now that I have time to actually sit down and watch things, I'm watching all these like shows and movies that have been on my backlog. It's just like I have no interest in playing a game right now at all.
Mhm.
So I just started The Boys a few days ago,
Mhm.
and so I'm still in season one, but I'm really enjoying it so far, even though there are some issues I can already kind of pick out of it. Um, but like that's been on my list forever, and then oh gosh, I can't. I watched
Well,
so many
no, it's
movies
okay.
last week, like.
Yeah, yeah. So, what has been 'cause obviously the gaming world is so different and very foreign to me. I am not a gamer. I might pretend to be one from time to time when I talk about an Atari or an arcade. That's about the extent of my knowledge and my desire to play. Um, but it has to be a completely different transition though into other pop culture. It does overlap greatly with normies, as you mentioned earlier, which I want to come back to talking about it in a minute.
Mhm.
Um, what's been one of the biggest surprises for you to kind of like make that transition or make that sort of jump, if you will?
I think it's the you have to play an algorithm when it comes to the movie and TV stuff, but you don't have to do the same with gaming.
Hmm.
Because gaming, it's how do I describe like movies and television, like, it's always up until I would say recently, I mean, there's some exceptions. It's always been like an event thing, right? It's always been something that you allot a specific time and day for, and you get
Mhm.
really into, you get excited, and you go to the theater, or you plop down at 9 p.m. on like a Thursday with popcorn, and you're ready to watch this episode of a show, right? So there's always a time factor to work with. Whereas with gaming, because it's usually something that you can't schedule time for, it's so much easier to play fast and loose with. Even when it comes to just the editing process, I much prefer editing game videos because I don't have to worry about the 7 second rule with all the clips. Um, but I just, yeah, it's easier to play, to be a little bit more free with the gaming content. And because there, like, yeah, there are some strict parameters to it, like this is how the gameplay is, this is how the control is. These are kind of the basic like technical qualities or functions, right? But then
Mhm.
your interpretation or your view of it can be a little bit looser than how it is with film and TV. I know everyone still can have their own opinion with that stuff, but I find that people are a lot more critical if you say, oh, this is really good or this is really bad, versus with gaming, because there's so much that you experience and you spend, 20, 40, 100 hours in it. Your perspective, yeah, you might both like something, but your perspective or why you find it good can be so vastly different as to why another person finds it good. So I really, it's kind of why I miss making gaming content more regularly for that reason. It seems a lot more freeing, in all honesty.
Is there more divisiveness over like I don't like this certain sequence in a game? That would be to me that would be the more comparable comparison in TV and movie. It's like
Mhm,
because I'm usually saying this episode or show or movie, whereas with a game because you have like 100 hours, which is like
mhm.
several different scenes and activities and
Yeah.
events or bosses, and so it's like oh this boss totally is there controversy that'll surround a segment of having an opinion that doesn't align with maybe the masses, or is it just because of the way it's constructed is the opinions almost like saturated into a larger bucket, if that makes sense.
Um, yes and no. There are
Mhm.
definitely instances where like people will nitpick on one specific thing. So like Starfield's the most recent one, everyone was nitpicking about the optional pronouns thing, right?
Right.
My opinion was vastly different from everyone else. Like, because for me, I was like, who the hell cares? It's such a minor thing that doesn't impact your gameplay. Why would I care about this? Tell me about, is it buggy? Tell me about if the missions are interesting, or if my character has an interesting arc, or if the missions are cool. I want to hear more about that. I don't give a flying fart about pronouns, even though I don't agree with that, right? Um, but then there are definitely instances where people will say like, "Oh, this specific boss, say in Elden Ring, right? There are specific bosses that everyone agrees is just really difficult. Whether you find them fun is another story, right?
Mhm.
But you're
Okay.
right. It's a mix, but general there are a lot of opinions that everyone more or less agrees on, but at the same time, there's a lot of opinions that will have a bit more of a nuanced um, take on.
Yeah, because I always find it interesting because people will be willing to digest, like you say, 100 hours of a game, all these different
Mhm,
activities and whatever, and have this very broad scope perspective of is it worth my time? Is it worth my money? Is it worth the experience of it all?
mhm,
So when I make what to me appears to be as close to an apples and apples experience I can, if I assess an entire TV show as
mhm,
being such a bloated waste of my time and energy and money because it's 6 or 8 hours to get this hour and a half to 2 hour story out of them, that
mhm,
I'm under like the hate microscope because I'm hated on the show. I'm like, no, it's fat and bloated and needs to be edited and trimmed and this is the problem with almost all of modern entertainment. It's like
mhm.
there all of 2023's movies. Almost there's literally like
Yep.
five 2023 movies that don't fit this category or something,
Mhm,
but almost every movie is me going, well, there's a good movie in there. There could be a great movie in there, but it's way too long. It needs to be edited. This scene doesn't matter. This character doesn't matter. Blah, 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 blah. Every single time.
mhm.
Every single one of them. Even when I'm having a good time, like John Wick 4, I had a good time and it's way too freaking long. Needs to be
Agreed.
edited tremendously. I don't even mind if people don't agree. It's and this goes back to I'll transition into the normies because usually what I'll say is, well, what you think about this? What'd you think about this? So, like Guardians is probably the easiest one because people like Guardians, love Guardians 3. That's great. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I had a good time. I thought it was way too long. I think we really didn't need. What'd you think about the way they handled the Gamora? Because it's like she's the Gamora, but oh yeah, I didn't really think about that. What'd you think about like the Michelin Man sequence where we went through the security but didn't really matter? And they talking about red
Mhm.
and yellow buttons, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I didn't really need all that. Oh yeah, great movie though, huh? Okay. Yeah, it's like you because I feel like you have to get them to see it because once they see it, they can't unsee it. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's just like it's planting the seed almost,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it,
Yeah.
it begins to grow and fester a little bit. But no, I actually totally agree with you because when I discuss movies on just like say the MMM show, it's like we'll get sometimes people that really love a movie, like we're doing Justice League right now. And there's people that like for all the faults that it has, there's still people that really love this movie. And it's just
Oh,
like,
good lord.
okay, I get where you're coming
I know
from, but it's
Snyder people and I are not going to. It's okay, guys. I know, and Nerd Polio's out there. I know I owe him a Justice League Snyder cut concept. It's a lot for me to do, brother. I'm not a big fan of having to sit through the Snyderverse stuff again because I'm not a big fan of any of it. Any of it, not just a little. And I'm not saying it doesn't suck. I'm not
Mhm.
trying to throw it under the bus. I'm just trying to say some of these people love it, and I don't get the love. I'm
Oh,
sorry
I'm gonna
sorry to
flat out
derail the
say it sucks.
conversation.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, some of it I have major problems with, and definitely sequences of it I just
Yeah.
completely can't stand.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry I didn't mean to derail that, but I know that
No,
I
no,
can
you're good.
hear the comments and the chats or the private DMs and messages because I got a lot of people that won't say it publicly, but they will blow me up privately. So go ahead. Mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
sorry then to your
No,
DMs.
no, it's fine. It's totally fine.
But no, it's just like we like there were several scenes that we kind of went through during our part 1 analysis last week. And it's like, okay, it's fine that you like it. It's just like that's not the problem. It's like if you look at this, why is like what did you think of this? What was the point of this? Oh yeah, yeah, okay. Well, why did they do this but not this? It's like it's you're right. You have to show them visually and then plant the seed, and then it's like, okay, you could. I still like it, but I get what you're saying, kind of deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought Guardians 3 was way too long. Is too many slow mo music interludes. That felt like half the movie right there. In all honesty,
We have a whole side quest that doesn't even matter. It's a whole
it's
side quest, and they go, "Oh, it's not really here. It's in the guy's head." And you're like, "I'm like,
what was the
you're
point of
making
all
me
this
hurt. Why
then?
did we waste Nathan Fillion for this? He's in his stupid Michelin." Oh, I'm just, yeah. No, we can do it. We can do movie analysis for 3 hours too, by the way. But, um, all the links are there, folks. Links for her regular YouTube stuff we're talking about, as well as the gaming stuff. It'll be there because you guys are into all sorts of stuff too. You don't have to be into what I'm into, but that's the reason why I want to have Vex on because she's into the gaming and stuff like that. Maybe she'll. I don't know. They do try to get me privately. They know that I'm not going to really get into it publicly, but there is privately at least a movement to have a Pops gaming channel. Let's see Pops try to game, and I'm like, I would be worse than Gary at Neurotic. Like I can't get the horse to actually go. I just walk off a cliff. Like I would be that bad. But I will admit, I went to like my granddaughter had, they had a party and
Mhm.
they was at an arcade thing, and my grandson had one here at an arcade just recently, and I was dropping quarters in some retro arcade games, playing Galaxia and there's
There you
Centipede, and
go.
I'm an OG arcade and
Mhm.
Atari, like Atari. I know it sounds that old, guy. I'm sorry, but all the newer stuff, it just Game Boy kind of, yeah, a little bit Star Wars games and then just I got other things to do. So no.
It's a night and day difference what
Oh
not
yeah.
only gaming has evolved to be, but even just the time and immersion you have to put into it. It's just because I remember growing up with like a Sega Genesis and like a Super Nintendo because that's what my brother had. And it's just like, okay, you'll sit down and then you start a game. You're probably gonna have to play through the whole game if you want to finish it because there wasn't always a save feature, right? But then now it's like it isn't just a linear game I'm playing anymore. It's like I have to, I can get lost doing this. And now it's more like I have to remember X, Y, and Z combinations or like
Mhm.
crafting modes and all this to get to this objective. So it's gaming
And the
is become a,
exploratory stuff, it makes my head. But so last year when I went, no, oh man, it's really old now, isn't it? It's been longer than a year. When I got like Pops focused and it was like Elden Ring had blown up or whatever, and
Mhm.
people were like, "Oh yeah, I'm on like hour 111 or whatever," and I'm just like, Holy crap! An hour, 100. I mean, so for me, my brain's like doesn't. I mean, I look at that into this many videos I could do and this much editing. I mean, I don't. So for me to commit that, it's
Right. It's
and there
commitment.
are shows I have not started because I'm not up to the challenge. I'm not. They were like, I can't do 7 seasons right now, guys. You are gonna have to wait. So
Oh
um, it
gosh.
took a while to get to certain shows. There are people like you haven't seen this. I'm like, I don't have it in me right now to watch 5 seasons of this, and I want to rewatch Sopranos because I haven't watched it like in order from the beginning straight
Mm,
through in years. Like it's been years since I've watched some of that. So I'd love to sit down but that's a lot of commitment of hours to
mhm.
what, yeah. So um
Agreed.
what what makes you happy from doing this? Like is it the comment? Is it the camaraderie? Is it a combination thereof? What are some of your thoughts on what makes you happy doing this?
The social. It's 100% the social.
Mm,
It's not necessarily the comments. It's I guess we'll get into a little bit of vex psychology here, but I have never been an
Vex
individual that
psychology.
has
Vexology? Is there a term? Hashtag vexology, I think.
right.
Where's Steven Ransom when I need him? Steven Ransom, hit that chat, buddy.
He'll
Define
have
that word
something
for us.
amazing.
It'll be a shirt tomorrow. It'll be
Right.
vexology. Go ahead.
But there's like I never had like a I was always very extroverted, but I guess a lot of people found me a little bit odd. So it's always been a struggle to socially connect with people that, even I'm on a similar wavelength to, because it's always either they find me kind of like off-putting because I'm a little bit more outspoken and out there, or it's that I have to constantly be monitoring everything I say for their comfort, right? Um but then getting into content creation, it's like I don't have to worry about finding my own little social circle or my niche because there are so many people that are on the same wavelength I'm on, right? So it's like this weird social acceptance thing, I guess, and
It's
it's
wonderful.
finally finding, my herd or
My
whatnot.
wife my wife is on me so much all the time. Like my poor daughter, they made a comment that they liked Guardians 3, and I just started well, what'd you think about what and she like kind of gives my arm a little squeeze. He's like, people are allowed to have opinions and you should let them. I'm like, but their opinions are wrong and they
Right.
have to be explained. We have to let them and see. I wouldn't be so confident with that assessment, Vex. And I think you will agree with me because once we open their eyes and they see it, they don't unsee it. It's not like
Exactly.
someone sees it and goes, "Oh, I'm okay with Kenobi smuggling layout in a coat. That was hysterical." No, everybody's like, "That was the dumbest crap I've ever seen in my life."
That's
Like a
exactly.
bantha, like a bantha. Once they see how stupid that is, they never go, "Oh no, you're being silly, pops. That was
Right.
hysterical." No, no.
Right,
They
it's
go,
the seed
"Yeah,
is planted, right? And then
yeah."
they start looking at everything else with a little bit more of a critical
But you
I had the
feel like
same thing.
you can talk about this here and you don't have to worry about like when I'm at the arcade at the social gathering, I'm like, I can't talk about this show with these people talking about this show because I'm going to be
Mhm,
mean to them. I won't be able to constrain myself because they said they liked it. They said
mhm.
they liked it, Vex. And I'm like,
That's exactly how I was when, I met, a friend's new boyfriend recently, and he's a bit of a movie nut. He wants to get into directing and all that stuff, and he said he liked Barbie, and I'm just standing there like,
oh dear Lord. Oh dear Lord.
"Oh, no." It's
Oh
just
dear
like you're
Lord.
right, it's just like, "Yeah, you can have your opinion. Your opinion's just wrong." That's
You know what? Barbie's a great. We should do a whole another. We got to schedule another video to do like a EFAP, but
I
we need
have
it would have to be
so
like
much to
4 hours.
say
Yeah,
about Barbie. So much
yeah.
to
There's
say
so
about
many
Barbie.
people that need to be like these words don't mean what you think they mean.
Mhm.
I think that's the problem with Barbie. It's Greta's lying to you, and then I don't think these things mean what you think they mean. Forget about the story and how bad everything is. I just don't think I think it's more like a social contagion. They're like, I'm just going to say it's good, not think about it. And it was fine and blah, blah. I'm like, no, yeah, I couldn't do it. I don't know. I'm trying to think if I could handle the room if they said they liked Barbie. Cause I have to be honest, I was in a meeting at my day job. I haven't told the
Mhm.
story yet. Barbie came up
Mhm.
and I just kind of hesitated for a minute. And the person did say she didn't like it. And I actually, be honest, I was shocked because she seems like the person that would be like, I wear my pink now. And it's,
Yeah.
she was not. She was like, no, I didn't like it. But she didn't have reasons and she probably couldn't articulate reasons. And I just asked the why questions in very coded language. And everyone else was kind of like, that sounds like a freaking dog crap pile. Man. But that's okay. That's my job. That's our job. That's our job, Vex. We're out
There you go.
there explaining to the world why we can't say these things are good because it demeans The Godfather and Shawshank Redemption, and it demeans the things that are good when we say these things are good. Like, you know what I
It
mean?
does.
Ahsoka's not good, and it's not fair to Empire Strikes Back for you people to say it's good. It's not
Hmm.
fair. It's demeaning for you to say Rings of Power could be palatable, which I have not watched more than 2
I
minutes of
haven't either.
because it would be demeaning to Lord of the Rings. It would be demeaning to Peter Jackson to say that stuff. It's like, and that's where I'm at. I'm like, no, you need to be woken up. That's it's woke 2.0. We'd wake you people up because y'all are morons.
The standard just kind of across the board, it's really weird how, like, feel like we hit our peak kind of in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then it was a steady decrease, and then now we're just kind of, it just, for some reason, just suddenly tanked. And now the standard for good is just like, oh, well, it was better than this. And I'm just like,
I
that's
have
a
my
horrible
theory. So
standard.
I have my scoring theory. Maybe you can take this back to the cannoli circles and have them help us figure this out.
Hmm.
So I've been reviewing movies semi-professionally probably for about 20 years. My wife thinks it's even longer than that, but it's about 20 years. And credentials come and go because if if you play ball or not, when you're honest like we try to be, sometimes you get kicked out of the club and you're not invited for the next screening. It's okay. It's part of life. I've been there, done that. The Rotten
Hmm.
Tomatoes scandal has kind of shown light to how that is. I was like, welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Um, but I used a 5-point system. I was brought into a 5-point system. If I gave
Hmm.
something a 3 stars, that was a good movie. That was a you should go see it movie.
Hmm.
2.5 stars was usually like a caveat, like that's a kid's movie. It's simple. It's 2.5 stars. It's a fine time. You're going to be okay, right? But that's kind of the
Hmm.
gauge. Then IMDb came along and they had a 10-point system, right?
Yeah.
Sixes and sevens is kind of where most things should land. I mean, that's a good movie. That's a good score,
Yeah,
right?
that's worth your
And
time at the very
and
least.
their mathematical scale for years reflected that. They were
Mhm,
very rare that there would be a 9. It was exceedingly rare. Okay.
mhm.
And then we got to Rotten Tomatoes, where they just go, they liked it. They don't like it. 60% of people like it. 90% of people say it's fresh. So it gets a 90. I'm like, okay, hold
Mhm.
on. Now everything is out of whack because people think they see an 80% or a 90%. It means it's an 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's 80 to 90% of people think it's a 6. But if I say it's a 60, people think you're, so that's why I stick to my 5-point perspective when I talk about things. But I think this has contributed to that scale of people thinking things are way better than they actually are because
Mm.
we want to be hesitant to say something is like a 3 or like if I said like Top Gun Maverick was a 4, I don't think that's a bad score at all. I think it's freaking fair. I think that's extremely fair. I mean, if you're really into Top Gun or the movie, it's rewatch. If you want to have a multiplier for rewatchability, I've discussed that many times. Like because something can be so rewatchable, it almost like
Mhm.
elevates the score slightly. You can get to a 9. But people who want to like really almost like exaggerate that movie is doing just the same criminal thing they are to other movies that are just 5 or 6s and
Mid
make them
at
to
best, you
8s.
know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, no, they're just not. I don't I think this is part of what's happened, but I think you're absolutely right to just I don't know, call out this nonsense. Like not everything can be a 7, 8, 9, 10. There should never
No,
be 10s. 10s are unicorns. 10s are
that
unicorns.
that's a bias right there. Even a 9, I'm very suspicious of a
Yeah.
9, to be
A 10
honest.
is a once every 5 to 10 years, and usually it's because it's timeless and it's proven it over the 10 years. Nines are like maybe once or twice a year, and that's a maybe because you don't really have the rewatchability factor yet. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, most things not top shelf is 8s and 8s. It's like that's 7, 8,
That's
7,
where
8,
I'll
9
trust.
is
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. See, this is folks, this is why I had her on because I know we connected in the same way. We know we're
It's
using the
I
same scales.
Honestly, yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think Rotten Tomatoes just kind of spoil, even for game, like Metacritic does the same thing. I think
Hmm.
it's spoiled how people perceive movies, and now it's just more popular to, oh, if everyone said they like it, I guess I like it too. Oh, if everyone, and then there are people that will come at, us where it's like, oh, we don't like Ahsoka. Oh, you're just dogpiling on it because that's popular to do right now. It's like, no, look at it realistically. Like, just take a step back. Look at this scene. What were they doing in this scene? What was the purpose? Stylistically, does it work with everything else we've seen? It's People have removed kind of the, like, just look at the movie as a movie, and a rating is now just strictly based on, did I enjoy it and did everyone
A
else enjoy it?
feeling. Okay. How
Yeah.
did you become so critically astute to maybe technical aspects as well? Because it's like my wife will make a comment about opinions and everyone's, whatever. I'm like, but no, it's a craft. So there's good editing and there's bad editing. There's
Yes.
good set design and there's pretty much everything that happens right now. You know what I mean? It's like there's good. I mean, it's like, okay, I can give Barbie a star for set design. I mean, okay, fine.
Yeah.
It's pretty. I
It
think it should
used
have even
physical
been
sets.
bigger.
Like, that's a
It should have been
positive for
even
me.
bigger and grander for me, but I'm okay with, but how did you develop like the critical eye for that part? Because I think you're always usually spot on with that as well.
Um, I think I just got into it at a really young age.
Mhm.
Like, my parents both immigrated to Canada. My mom, she was in finance. My dad was in medicine, so there wasn't really any creativeness happening. But like, I got to grow up in that era where it's like, oh, you have 10 like VHSs at home. That's all you're going to watch for the rest of the year, right? Kind of deal, because
Mhm.
there's no streaming services. So from a young age, you just like, okay, you're watching the same thing over and over again. You start to just go past the, I just like watching this, and get to the, huh, that's interesting that they did that, or like, that's really cool that they didn't do in the sequel or whatever, right? Like, I'm a really, I love Aladdin. Yes, I know I'm brown and I love Aladdin. But I had all three
You're
of the
allowed. You're
movies on
allowed to
V.
be. You're allowed to be on my show and be brown, and you're
There,
allowed to be on my show and like Aladdin. So I mean,
there
who
you
knew? Who knew?
go.
I like
But
the
like,
original Aladdin just fine. The second one
right.
made my head hurt a couple times, but it's okay.
And I didn't mind the third one because it had a fun little mystical element to it, right?
Mhm.
But like, I had all three of those on VHS, and then there was that Aladdin TV show that was running for a little while on the Disney Channel, and I had the VHS copies of most of those episodes as well. So it's just like, I got used to rewatching that, and then it's just, you pick up little things, like even the animation style. You can see a huge difference in how the first Aladdin movie was animated versus the third movie, and then
Mm,
even a difference
okay.
between the first Aladdin movie and then the TV show, right? So I started to pick up on that, and around the time I was like, I think it was like when we finally got like a proper home computer when I was like 12 or 13. um I guess I got acquainted with how to not legally acquire like movies and TV shows, right? And then it's just like, there was that freedom that you had on the internet where it's like, oh, they didn't shut this down because of this politics or because of this association. So the entire internet was a bit of like a Wild West scenario, right?
Mhm.
So I had that opportunity to kind of like look up all of these films that I might have like found randomly through a torrent or a download. And then it was kind of like, I'd watch a movie, and then I just like, I know I like this or I don't like this, but why don't I like this? And then I'll go on some forums and I'm just like, oh, these people are able to put into words why
Okay.
I
Okay.
didn't enjoy this or why I enjoyed this. And then I got really into anime in high school. So it's like, now there's an exposure to a completely different regions, not only just like style in terms of medium, but the way they tell story, their dialogue, the way they choose to animate or not animate things. So then that kind of opens your eyes to, what are they doing differently that makes this so popular versus what we're doing over
Mhm.
here in
Mhm.
North
Sure.
America that's not having the same impact. So it's kind of just like, it's a product of my time, I would say, more than anything. And like, I read a lot as a kid too, so I was exposed to a lot of different genres. I enjoyed reading. Um, I think I took the extra initiative, I guess, in my younger years, and it's coming to pay off all these years later, not just in the way I watch media, but even just professionally, it's paid off immensely when it comes to just working in education now.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You had the bug. She's got the bug. That's good. That's good. It's Vex. It's been great hanging out with you. Hope
It's
everybody
oh,
here
this
has
is
had a good time.
honestly, we could keep going for another 2 hours
I
with some of the
I know.
topics we
Well,
touched on.
folks, listen. Make sure you go over to Vex, and you have multiple channels to go check out and hang out with Vex, because that's just how it's
Mhm.
going to be. So, but I wanted to really introduce you to you guys, get to know her a little bit, and yes, this self-proclaimed little brown Aladdin fan. It sounds like a shirt that Steve Ransom's going to produce too. By the way, I'm a little concerned. I don't like the you know, the internet. It's still a little wild. It's a little wild. But folks,
Mhm.
thanks so much for hanging out with us. It's been a great to do Watch Your Story. Join us every Sunday morning for this as it premieres. We appreciate that. If you're watching it after the fact, make sure you leave a comment down there. Let us know some different thoughts or questions or whatever. We appreciate that very much. Vex, again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for hanging out for so long. We appreciate you.
Oh, it was my pleasure, and I'd love to discuss more of this. I love
Well,
this sphere.
spoiler
That's
alert
really all
for
it
folks,
is.
if you haven't seen it, we have other videos we're going to do together. This was the first one we recorded. So if you're catching this is actually like, the first one, but it's not the first one. So you go into my channel and figure that out. Take care, everybody. Thank you.